What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you, as always, for coming on through, for clicking on this video, whether you clicked on this video because of the simple and yet informational thumbnail, or you clicked on the video because you just want to see someone listen to a song, which that's probably the main reason you're here. Let's go ahead and listen to Todd Rundgren. We're going to move on to the next track, in Initiation with Born to Synthesize. What do we synthesize? What are we synthesizing? I don't know. What are we synthesizing up? Who knows? We're going to find out a little bit, though. I'd imagine there's probably going to be some synth on this. I'm just imagining. But let's find out shortly, and how shortly? Like, right now. Let's go.
A handful of nothing is all that I need. It contains plus and minus everything. The odd combinations of what make up the world that you see before you. On one hand I hold what people call good, the rest I hold in the other. But these are just symbols to the perfected minds, of which we are but mere reflections. I was born to synthesize, energize and catalyze. I was born to synthesize. Like waves on still water, the forms reappear, quickly erasing the ones before. But forms like these are born only to die, but the life in them lives forever. Pyramid spheres and obelisks are the patterns of all creation, but the polygon's only desire is to get to the big triangle. I was born to synthesize. Visions rise before your eyes. I was born to synthesize. Orbits of consciousness spin round and round. Apparently they don't know, but the odd combinations are leading you on to your home, which is in the center. You were born to synthesize.
I'm just gonna let it go to the next track. Death and rock and roll.
my lonely guitar. Nobody paid, nobody stayed, nobody paid. Just my lonely guitar. Must be the day of rock and roll.
Oh, what an interesting twofer we have here. We go from a synthesized spiritual into just a blistering, straightforward A to Z rock and roll song proclaiming the death of rock and roll. Why did rock and roll die? I don't know for sure, but I feel like it's related to Born to Synthesize. Okay, Born was really unexpected. I wasn't expecting, like I said, it's basically an a cappella synthesized spiritual. It's exactly the sound that you expect listening to that kind of genre. And it's interesting. In an album listen, it fits really nicely. One thing I didn't enjoy about it, two things I didn't enjoy about it. I didn't really like the synth part behind his voice. I didn't like the synth production behind it. I actually felt that if it was just his voice alone, naked, it would have sounded a lot more real, I guess. And I understand, like, you know, of course the synth behind it is to add an effect, and I get it. It goes with the theme. I get that. But I just didn't like how it sounded. So regardless of themes or whatever, if it doesn't sound good to me, I don't care. But it was an interesting idea, especially later in the song where the synth would kind of break into his voice. I thought that was kind of cool. But Hide and Seek from Imogen Heap, this is not. You know, it wasn't as interesting. But I do like it as a connective tissue from the first track on the album into moving on to this one here, The Death of Rock and Roll. I do think that was kind of an interesting connection between the two. I do wish that it went on just a little shorter, but this is me nitpicking a little bit. I didn't really hate it that much. I'm really being nitpicky when I'm talking about that one. Ow, I hit my head. Death of Rock and Roll, though. That kicked things right back up a notch. That got straight back into that heavy rock and roll feel. And that was a complete 180 from what we had just heard. But at the same time, if like all three of these songs, the first three tracks on the album, actually make a pretty decent amount of sense listening to them and hearing them, like, you know, in sequence. You know, they actually kind of work really well, from the really funky, rocky opening into the synthy a cappella into this straight rock and roll. Like, it's just really cool to hear all these different styles from Todd, but to hear them actually work really well together. And then I can't help but think about the second side of the album, which is just, that's something completely different. Let's talk about the lyrics, though, on Born to Synthesize. A handful of nothing is all that I need. It contains plus and minus everything. The odd combinations are what make up the world that you see before you. In one hand, I hold what people call good. The rest I hold in the other. But these are just symbols to the perfected minds of which we are but mere reflections. It sounds like he's kind of talking as God. Like, I hold everything and nothing. I do this and that. Like, we're getting some sort of deification of something. At least that's how I feel. I was born to synthesize, energize, and catalyze. I was born to synthesize. Like waves on still water, the forms reappear. quickly erasing the ones before. But forms like these are born only to die, but the life in them lives forever. Pyramids, spheres, and obelisks are the patterns of all creation, but the red polygon's only desire is to get to the blue triangle. So he could also just be talking as a musician, perhaps literally sitting at a synthesizer and just like messing around with this new technology and the power that this new technology holds in music, which obviously, I mean, synthesizers are and were and will be for a long time a major part of music, of all modern music, basically. And he just continues to talk about that. And I feel like this is actually lyrically contributing to the death of rock and roll. Just the other day, I got a call from a friend. I heard what you've been playing, and I think it's a sin. Why can't you make a living like the rest of the boys instead of filling your head with all that synthesized noise? So I feel like perhaps in a joking kind of tongue-in-cheek way, he's saying that synthesizers are the death of rock and roll. Because, let's see, this album came out, what was the year? I want to say 78? 75. So perhaps, of course, we're still at the kind of advent and gaining popularity, but synth pop will start coming out. It's like, you know, heavier synth-based songs leading into the future and sampling and stuff like that. And perhaps he's been told, or people have mentioned to him, or he feels in some way that synths are kind of gonna kill rock and roll to an extent. Jackals wait nearby, watching rock and roll die, and no one dared to help it. Vultures fill the sky. I thought we was supposed to be free, but we all got sold. It must be the death of rock and roll. The critics got together and they started a game. You get your records for nothing and you call each other names. Things got out of hand and somebody got sore. Now we're all tuning up for the rock and roll war. Nobody paid, nobody played, nobody stayed. Just my lonely guitar. I love the way he says it. Nobody paid, nobody played, because you're not going to play music if you don't get paid. And then nobody stayed because there was no music playing. So it's just him and his lonely guitar. The death of rock and roll right then and there. That's actually really cool. I like that line. Yeah, I like these two tracks. Like I said, the first one I didn't, love, but I think it's an interesting idea. I didn't care for the synthesized part of the presentation, but I do like the way that he sings overall in that track. When he's getting into those higher, I didn't really care for that either. But getting back to death and rock and roll, put some life back into it. But I would love to hear what you guys thought. Of course, you can leave those thoughts down in the comments. You can follow me in a few places, Twitter, Patreon. That's kind of it. And otherwise, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you as always for being here. And I'll see you later. Bye.